So here's the uncomfortable truth nobody likes to talk about. We got desegregation. That was great and all, but we didn't get power. And towards the end of his life, even Martin Luther King Jr. realized that was a problem. Because access without ownership, that's not freedom. That's a setup. So every Black History Month, we replay the same highlight reels. MLK wanted us to hold hands. Malcolm X wanted separation. One was peaceful, one was fire. End of discussion. Except that version of history is incomplete because towards the end of his life, Dr. King's focus shifted. It shifted away from just integration and toward economic justice. And when you put his late work next to Malcolm X's philosophy, you start to realize they weren't as apart as people think. And that realization changes how we talk about money, credit, and power today. So stay with me, because the part people leave out, this is the most important part. Let's start with what we know. Malcolm X was very clear. Black self-determination, Black-owned businesses, control of Black communities, economic independence before social integration. He famously said, "We need a self-help program, a do-it-yourself philosophy, a do-for-self philosophy." What that really translated to was nationhood requires infrastructure. Now, MLK early on focused heavily on desegregation, voting rights, legal equality, and that work mattered. Don't get it twisted. But by 1966 to 1968, Dr. King's messaging changed. He started talking less about lunch counters and more about poverty, labor, and wealth. That's not an accident. And this is where people get uncomfortable because it complicates the fairy tale version of history. But before we get into all that, let me introduce myself. Hi, my name is Jade, and welcome to our channel, Get Into the Black, where we explore life, business, and culture our way from Puerto Rico to the world. I'm a social worker who has dedicated her life to talking about conversations around race and culture. If that's something you're into, you're really going to like this channel, and you're definitely going to like this video. So make sure that you stay tuned until the end. From all my legacy kinfolk, you know what to do. Make sure you hit that like button like it owes you money, and drop a comment so I know that you're awake. And I know that you're here. That's going to be our Black Power exercise. I need for you to drop a comment in the comment box. Say we here. You could put a little fist up, a little Black Power fist. You can do that. You can do that too. You know what? Actually, that's going to be our little thing. That's going to be our emoji. You see, we keep building as we go on. Each video, we're building. For anyone who is new here or who hasn't done so already, because I keep seeing you watching my videos, but you're not subscribed yet. So please make sure that you hit the subscribe button and officially join our Legacy Kinfolk family. With that being said, let's get back into this video. By the late 1960s, America had technically opened doors, but Black Americans were still locked out of wealth, capital, ownership, economic security. Dr. King noticed that. And in 1967, he said, "We are integrating into a burning house." That's not poetic fluff. That's a critique. He also said, "The problem indicates that our emphasis must be twofold. We must create full employment, or we must create incomes." That's not just civil rights. That's economic policy. This is why MLK launches the Poor People's Campaign. He started supporting labor strikes and begins openly criticizing capitalism, which is why, fun fact here, he was deeply unpopular at the time of his death, even though currently now we might praise him. Here's the shared truth between MLK and Malcolm X that rarely gets said out loud. Political rights without economic power are fragile. Malcolm X saw integration without control as dangerous. MLK came to understand that proximity to whiteness did not equal protection. Neither man was obsessed with vibes, they were obsessed with systems. And systems run on money, credit, capital, access. What brings me to this part nobody wants to talk about today. Because if we want to understand how economic exclusion worked then, we won't recognize how it works now. And yes, this is where modern credit comes into the conversation. Let me say something plainly, and some people might not like it. A lot of our fears around money isn't accidental, it's inherited. These cash-only mindsets, distrust of banks, fear of credit, none of that came from nowhere. For generations, Black people were denied loans, redlined, exploited by predatory lending, excluded from wealth building tools. So avoidance became a survival strategy. But here's the problem. The system did not disappear, it just modernized. Today, access looks like credit history, lending eligibility, capital access, financial credibility, which is why MLK's late stage focus matters right now. Because economic inclusion isn't about flexing, it's about positioning. And positioning determines where you live, how you move, what you can build, what you can pass down. This isn't about telling people to go get into debt. It's about understanding the rules of the system you're already living inside. And this is why I'm intentional about the tools I even mentioned on this channel. A lot of people aren't trying to run up debt. They're just trying to understand their options without being punished for their curiosity. And historically, that curiosity has come with consequences. That's why I appreciate tools like Capital One's pre-approval. It lets you look and see if you qualify without actually impacting your credit score. And you don't even have to have a credit score to apply. It's a way to learn where you stand without putting yourself at risk. Information is leverage. You should use it wisely. And just to be a little transparent, the reason why I'm talking about Capital One is because that was actually my first credit card. I opened it back in 2012 at a time when I was just trying to get my foot in the door, and I wasn't like chasing any perks or status or anything. I had just graduated college, and I was out there on my own, and I knew while I was still trying to build my savings account that I should still have some form of like credit or access to money if I need it in a time of like, an emergency. So over time, I was building credit, being responsible, and that changed what access I had. Not overnight, not magically, but gradually. And that's why I'm careful about how I talk about credit. It's not about flexing limits. It's about understanding how access compounds. So when I mention a tool like this, it's coming from a lived experience, not theory. If you want to explore your options without impacting your score, the link can be found below. You guys know how I do. You can either find it in the description box or the pinned comment. So Malcolm X and MLK weren't opposites, as people like to routinely position them. They were responding to the same problem, but from slightly different angles. They both understood something critical though. Freedom without economic infrastructure is fragile. Black History Month shouldn't just remind us of where we've been. It should sharpen how we move forward, because the goal was never just access. The goal was power. And if history teaches us anything, it's that understanding the systems is part of surviving it. If you guys really enjoyed this video, you're going to enjoy this next one. And until next time, stay beautiful, stay blessed, and stay Black. This is Jade, and you're watching Get Into the Black. Bye-bye.